I thought I'd talk a little bit about some of the, just very briefly touch on some of the adventures that my dad and I got to experience together. Because I was his legs, you know. He didn't give a shit about me, really. But I helped him get around. He taught me how to drive fast so he could drive fast, you know. Seriously. It's probably the only father I know that was like, you know, we got the sirens behind us, and he looks at me and he's like, "Can you shake this guy?" I'm like, "I got this, Dad." A little wink, you know. But, so anyway, we went to see Stephen Hawking, and my dad would always, like, you know, he'd get in there with like, "Oh, hey, you know, maybe we can meet Stephen Hawking, we'll do an article on this new device that allows him to communicate to the outside world," you know. We didn't give a shit about that. We wanted to talk about black holes, you know, the book he'd just written. So we get the interview, we arrive at Gonville and Keys, we're all excited, you know, and this is like, I can't imagine how painstakingly slow it would take to communicate with the outside world. I mean, we're talking one thumb. We get in the interview, and the first thing we ask him is about black holes. And there he was, typing away. I mean, click, 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 click. Nurse came in a few times, left. Click, 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 click. And we're like, Jesus Christ, it's gonna take like a month, right? Click, click, click. And then they came back and he goes, "I thought this interview was going to be about computers, not God." Dad and I kind of looked at each other. Alrighty then. But anyway, so, you know, then we got to go and interview some Battle of Britain pilots talking about, or RAF pilots about the Battle of Britain, and take a fast car. We took a Porsche across the Highway 50. We averaged, my dad was so proud. He's like, "Do you realize we averaged 137 miles an hour for 1.5 hours? That's a really good average speed." So I was like, "God, Dad, I was hitting 150. I had it pinned on 150 for the last hour and a half. I don't know how it got as low as 137, but it did." I don't know if Paul Ryan's here or not, but I think yeah, there he is. Paul Ryan shot that from an airplane. So anyway, so there's all these stories that I could go through, but, you know, I thought, like, this man did more, paralyzed from the neck down, than anyone I know. And I thought, well, what sums it up best for my dad? And this is something that I shared with the people that came to, there was only a handful of us, his burial, which coincidentally is at the cemetery just right up the road here. I shared with them, because this kind of sums up my father better than anything else I could possibly imagine. I had foolishly taken on a rather large project in 2007, and I set a date. It's one of those things where it's like the locomotive's going, you know, it's gonna get there with or without you at this point. You set it off. And I'm just having a total meltdown, man. I don't have enough money. The witnesses aren't getting the visas, and the media, and the da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And my dad looked at me and he's like, "Son," he's like, "what's going on?" I said, "Dad, oh my God." He said, what's the worst case scenario?" I said, "Well, the media is not going to show up, and I don't have enough money, and I'm really worried about getting these visas from Iran and South America." And I started rambling this whole slew of lists of things that I was just terrified about, right? I was having nightmares. And he looked at me, and he very calmly, he's like, "That's not the way I see it." I was like, "How do you see it, Dad?" He goes, "Well, I see it. The worst case scenario is you never went for it." How true that is. And I thought, you know what? You are damn right. Seriously, right? Yeah. And that was Dad. That was Charles.